How you doing? I hope everybody's doing well. After all that dancing, though, I feel like I should come out here and dance. As a youngster, that's what I wanted to do in my career, is to be a dancer. And in these days, I just dance in my head. But it was wonderful to see those young people. And since you are creative, you appreciate their creativity. And I appreciate Purpose-Built Schools Atlanta for including the arts in their work. So it's a STEAM school, STEM plus art. So let's give a round of applause for all that they are doing. That's a much better picture. You know, you don't like looking at yourself all the time. But we have Purpose-Built Schools Atlanta folks in the audience. I think it's about half of the folks here who've come to cheer us on about the work there. So would you all stand up and then I'll get on. There's a group of people from Purpose-Built Schools Atlanta. Thank you. So before Amina leaves, I just want to mention that I went to see David Chappelle. And you look like you're dressed for it today, girlfriend. That's exactly right, that green suit. It's very good, but thank you. Thank you so much for having me. As usual, I have some notes, but who cares about that? I thought I would come out and talk to you a little bit about why investing is not just in the stock market, and it's not just in politics, and it's not just in your neighborhood or your family. We're here to talk about investing in people, and specifically children, who have incredible obstacles in order to succeed. So just a short story. I went to an all-girls public high school in Philadelphia. I was a decent student, hardworking, but still just decent student. And in my senior year, my girlfriend and I decided we wanted to write a novel. But of course, you had to cut school in order to do that, right? So we took a day off from school and went down to the subway. Down in the subway, instead of going to school, we traveled by the subway to go to school. We sat on a bench and worked all day, and somehow the school found out about it. And my mother was called to school. I'm a senior now. I'm in my last semester of school. So my mother was called up to the school, and she and I went in to see the vice principal. Now, the truth of the matter is, it was the first time I'd ever met the vice principal. I've been there for 4 years. But the vice principal said to me, for reasons I still don't understand, and that's a long time ago, she said, I don't think you're college material. Based on one infraction, one problem. Now, what do you think? Do you think I was crushed? Those of you who know me in Atlanta probably don't think so. But under normal circumstances, she went on to have her words. All I heard was, I don't think you're college material. You may not be a college material. This is a college prep school. I was in the top 20% of the graduating class. I had studied Latin, Greek, and French, passed all of my courses, had pretty solid SAT scores. But in a flick, she was willing to say, I don't think you're college material. My mother, who was an educator, just was crushed. And you could see it on her face. Imagine what I thought. It went in one ear and out the other. You know why? Because dozens of people had invested in me, and one person's opinion was not going to change my destiny. I didn't think about it at all, except to tell the story. I didn't think about it because dozens of people had invested in me. Because at church, at Girl Scouts, at Brownies, in my family, my teachers, everyone had invested in me and had encouraged me along the way. And I believed that they were right, and this one person, probably a really good vice principal, just not good that moment, was trying to steer me in another direction. So almost 60 years later, I tell you that story. What if I had believed her? What if I had not had all of that support? That's why investing in people matters. And that's why adults of all kinds and children, peers, make a difference. So here we are at Purpose-Built Schools. Purpose-Built Schools Atlanta. It's kind of a long name. Here's some statistics. I lived in a vibrant community, a community of people who trusted each other, where we could walk down the street, where neighbors knew each other, where there were enough people telling me, yes, you can, that one person saying, no, you can't, didn't matter. But these statistics suggest that of the almost 4 million people who are born in the United States every year, some 40% are born into families that are having a hard time making ends meet. The statistics say that they don't earn enough money in order to support their families on a consistent basis. When I was mayor, I would say if the number is 40%, another 15 to 20% are so close that if you tell them they are financially stable, they would argue with you. That is a huge, huge number. 40 million people, pick a number, maybe 20, maybe 30. There are some of you out there who'll say, well, I don't know if that number is right. The bottom line is somewhere close to 40 million people live in poverty in the United States. And as I say, another 10, 15 million live so close that they wouldn't believe you if you said they did not live on limited means. They'd give you all the reasons why they make it. In the United States, back of the envelope calculation, there are about 825 neighborhoods. 825 neighborhoods where people live in concentrated poverty. Doesn't seem like a lot, although it is a lot. I don't know what you would guess the Atlanta numbers are. How many neighborhoods do you think in metro Atlanta? I don't know the answer to this, so your answer is always right. 825 neighborhoods where people live in concentrated poverty. And lots of research that shows that when you live in concentrated poverty, you face obstacles that the rest of us don't face. Problems, you can start with safety, you can talk about food deserts. There's all sorts of things that you can talk about. And school performance is lower, school resources are lower. Extra time to work on problems is less. People are working 2 or 3 jobs, or they work occasionally. But not this little girl. Remember when you lost your front teeth? It was a badge of courage and excitement that you're growing up. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get your permanent teeth. Not this little girl. Not in a few neighborhoods in Atlanta where Purpose-Built Schools Atlanta works. These are our schools: Thomasville, Slater, Price, and Carver STEAM Academy. Look at those statistics. I'm less concerned about the race of the children, but what about the statistics that they are performing, not because they are not able, not talented, not gifted, not aspirational. They are performing at the lowest levels of performance that is measured by educators. In the bottom 5%. Most of us wouldn't be satisfied if it was the bottom 40%. It doesn't matter whether it's 5%, it's the bottom that is the problem. I went to see a state legislator a few years ago when we were talking about this program. And he had been to a public meeting, and he said, listen, I think you're all wrong. We need to do what we used to do. You know, nostalgia, the good old days that really never existed quite as we remember them. We need to do what we used to do. And I said, pull up your computer, go to the state website on the Georgia milestones or whatever the test is called, and pull up any school you want. And then he did. And I said, now look at Slater, Price, Thomasville, and Carver. I said, what numbers do you see? For Thomasville, he saw the number 1. I said, this is a case when you want to be 100, not 1. 1 means for 3 of the last 4 years, Thomasville has been the lowest performing school in the state. It's walking distance from the state capitol. But not anymore. So purpose-built schools comes into existence because the Atlanta Public Schools decided to look at some of their programs about 5 years ago and wanted to figure out how do we do something called turnaround? How do we make improvements faster? What are we doing wrong? It's not because people were not trying. And they went out for recommendations and proposals, and purpose-built schools proposed that we would work with a cluster of schools that feed into Carver STEAM Academy now. And that we would work in those schools using the model that had been developed at Drew Charter School over the last 20 years. These are neighborhood-based traditional schools. Let me say that again, because you're not going to get it. Neighborhood-based traditional schools. If you live on Elm Street in the neighborhood, you are assigned to this school. These are not charter schools. These are neighborhood-based schools. If you show up to school the day before the Georgia milestone tests, you are enrolled. There are low barriers because there are no barriers to entry. Low barriers because there are no, just like a traditional school. So, this group, what's different about it? Educators are trained in some of the same colleges and universities that other educators have been trained in. School building, some look better than others. All of them are clean and functional, meet all the federal and state standards. The curriculum has to track to the state requirements, whichever they are at the particular time, I might add. But the bottom line is, what's different? What do you think these children are planning? What's it look like? Planning the future of Atlanta Beltline. They are working with the Atlanta Beltline at Slater and at Carver, and they're actually going to do charrettes. This is integrated into the normal curriculum. That's what makes this different. The flexibility to partner outside of the school with other caring adults. School day is longer too. That's not bad. Now you're talking, right? We could all use that. Close your eyes. Several times a day in all 4 schools, there is focused, disciplined meditation. The introduction of meditation as a tool so that young people can release their stress, separate themselves from whatever might be bothering them, external factors. Collect not just their thoughts, but their energy, their creativity. Investing in the person's, the individual student's ability is a significant part of what we do. Now that is adorable. That is really adorable. I suggest you do this today. Chess. Here we are, two young men studying the board. How many of you had a chess club in your school? How many had a class on chess? A class on chess. How many had a math teacher who decided that chess was a good way to invest in young people's critical thinking and strategy skills? How many had middle school students at Price? Imagine middle school students at Price who just started, 2 years later ranked among the best chess teams in the state of Georgia. Remember those statistics. It gets better than that. How many these young men are now interviewing so that they can teach chess to younger children? This is a core part of the curriculum. Following the teacher's experience and intuition that this might work, and then embracing young people in the process so that they are competing statewide. And there is a theory that some schools follow, and we do. It is not the winning, it is the learning that takes place in the preparation for competition that will serve you best long term. There's our Beltline crew. They're out there planning, understanding what's going on. Urban gardening. Some of the private schools and some of the public schools in Georgia actually do urban gardening. So Thomasville is in a food desert. What does that mean? The cost of produce is very expensive. How in the world can you afford, you already have a low income, you're already working hard. How can you afford fresh produce? So the more expensive produce you just skip over. You don't even look at it. Does anybody else do that in the store? If it gets too exotic, price gets too high, I figure, okay, I'll go back to iceberg. But the bottom line is, this garden now, students are not just planning the garden, planting the garden, understanding the process of gardening and all that goes into agriculture. They're not just understanding that. They have a farmer's market. They sell the produce in a community that was a food desert. Now, I garden. So when I go to the board meetings, they tell me that they don't think my vegetables are as good as their vegetables. And that's probably true because I am self-taught. And I haven't used much. I just use trial and error. And they are actually learning all of the principles. But imagine their excitement that they are being introduced to not just foods, but they're also being introduced to a process and something that I absolutely love, entrepreneurship. At an early age. This is not high school. This is elementary school. In a school that is located in a census tract that has the lowest income in the state of Georgia. We're not talking about middle-income families here. We're talking about people who are struggling. Not some of them, all of them are struggling. But the parents and the families have no less aspirations for themselves and their families than we do. Can the school be a place where you learn all the basics,
Because clearly you have to do that. But can it be a place where you learn the basics plus all of the extra things that you need in order to succeed and be creative in a global economy? If you can teach it early, the meditation, the gardening, the dance, the robotics, it'll make all the difference in the world. This is the Green Squad. The Green Squad has decided that they want to be change agents in the world. So they meet to talk about the world and what they can do to improve not just the environment, but the overall world. And here's a favorite. We're going to end on this one, the photos. The young man to the left graduated from the STEAM Academy and is now a student at Georgia State University. So let's hear it for that. That's good, right? No doubt the parents had a lot to do with it. No doubt the people in the neighborhood had a lot to do with it. No doubt the teachers in the schools had a lot to do with it. He was so committed that he decided to come back and be a mentor in his freshman year. I couldn't figure out how to do anything else in my freshman year other than how to get to the party on Saturday night. That was my extracurricular activity. But something happened to him at Carver. Something happened to him that was so meaningful that at 18 or 19 years old, he's already modeling the behavior that we all hope to achieve. Purpose-built Schools, Atlanta, is a not-for-profit traditional school that operates and manages 4 schools in Southeast Atlanta in some of the poorest neighborhoods in the state. And if they're the poorest in the state, guess what? They're some of the poorest in the country. I've had some statisticians tell me that Thomasville faces similar challenges related to poverty that the Mississippi Delta communities face. We don't characterize it that way because it's right down the street, because we don't see people. But in fact, that is the case. So Purpose-Built Schools said, let us bid, let us try. I call it an experiment. Other people call it a model. And let's take the best that we know from our many years. All of the folks from Purpose-Built Schools look young. They really aren't. They have 15, 20 years in education. Let's take all of that experience and the experience that Drew with curriculum development, project-based learning, STEAM instead of STEM. Let's take all of that and pour it into some of these communities. Is it perfect? You can shout no. Is it moving in the right direction? You can shout yes. It's moving in the right direction. So I'm a politician, or used to be. So you know I could talk forever. And some of it would make sense and some of it wouldn't. Some of it you'd care about and some of it wouldn't. But so why do I do this? This approach to education, in my 40 years in public life, is the best initiative that I've seen that is sustainable over time. It's a traditional school. It incorporates as it goes. So you don't have to wait to figure out whether you still need to teach Latin. You are incorporating and changing. It's a partnership with the community. The target population is the most needy. Sure, some of the children would succeed regardless of whether any of us showed up. But the statistics say the vast majority would not and have not in my lifetime. I believe that education is a key, not the only one, but one of the most important ones to strengthening the democracy, for keeping the country strong, for keeping cities strong, and for keeping families strong. It is a key. Children teach adults, adults teach children, and as long as we open those doors, we have a bright future. So yeah, I'm 74 years old. And on NPR this morning, they said, you know, everybody who's retired or close to retirement is watching the stock market. I said, They said, there's nothing you can do about it. I put my hand down. The question is, what can I do something about? The question is, where do you invest your time, your talents? And do you actually believe that people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder belong there, deserve to be there, did something to get there? And let's say all of your answers are yes. So what? Did I deserve to be mayor of Atlanta? Absolutely not. Other people made that happen. This is called paying it forward. Thank you very much.